Good afternoon, everybody. Let's do a slow start because I can see that many people are joining us yet. So welcome to our webinar. It's about supercharging the customer experience. We actually are two companies presenting today. So we are Collab and WDS on this webinar. We expect this session to go for about 30 minutes. And we are happy to take any questions. If you want to send over the questions during the session, we will take note of them and we will create an interactive period towards the end, like a Q&A period. If the question is really important and you really want to take part in the live debate, just type that, and of course I'm happy to introduce you as also a presenter and enable you speaking permissions. Otherwise, we will leave the Q&A towards the end. We will also be recording this session, and we will also make it available for all the guests at a later stage. And with this, also out of respect of some people that we already have, just one more minute. And we will be starting. So we have people also from around the world. From what I could see, we have roughly 70 people signed in for this webinar, 70. Usually the conversion rate is about 30%. So about 30% or 40% of people that subscribe to webinar attend the live session. We have also on a marketing experience learned that many people also consume these contents offline, what we call the webinar on demand. So that just go to our YouTube channel or webpage and just click play, which is also a cool marketing tool. So these webinars are recorded because of that. Just as an introduction, we debated whether these webinars should be publicly available or what we call gated content, meaning that you should need to fill in a form to have access to webinars. I think recently we have opted for gated, meaning these will be publicly available through a form, and you will be guided to an unlisted video on our YouTube channel. Yeah, so this is a way we can capture leads and understand who is indeed using our content, while at the same time making it easier for content to be distributed. So this being said, I think we can give it a go. Welcome everybody. Good morning or good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are. As I said, the title for this session today is about supercharging the customer experience. I have my colleagues, Andy and Sasha, will be driving the session, but before introductions are made, just a quick overview on the agenda. So we'll be basically splitting the pitch into 3 different parts plus Q&A. The first one is about the challenges that we are identifying in our industry today. So not the current market challenges, as we all know, inflation, rising gas prices, ongoing war in Europe. Not about those types of challenges, but more about the challenges that as professionals in the customer experience industry or in the contact center industry are facing. Things like customer acquisition costs or call center staffing, or even the variety of channels that in a post-pandemic period people are now choosing. And most importantly, perhaps in these strange times, are the abilities to measure ROI. We will be taking a deep dive into the ROI piece of the puzzle. On the second part, the supercharging part, we will try to present you with some possible solutions for this, going around our customer journeys, about some customer success programs that we have identified and we can bring to the table, and also the benefits of a fully managed services approach. We have several customers and partners on this call. Some of them are already part of our managed services program. And it's something that we also want to explain, kind of a life insurance where Collab and WDS basically take over all the mechanics of your operation, leaving you time for the brains mostly. And finally, on the conclusion part, the key takeaways will be kind of highlighting the best messaging of the parts 1 and 2. Next slide, please. So introducing our speakers, I will not be doing any speaking besides this intro and a part of the conclusion. So I will be handing over to Andy and Sashi. Andy is the CTO or Chief Technology Officer for WDS. Andy has over 20 years of experience in this industry, in the software industry, in a wide range of verticals. As you are aware of, most of our sister companies, our Lumin companies, we are mostly telco focused, meaning that, for instance, Collab and WDS, we have all worked with telcos, selling through telcos or selling to telcos, but we have many partners and customers here on this call today that are not telcos. They could be government institutions, they could be health institutions or industry or finance. So we will be trying to adapt our pitch to those customers as well and partners. Andy is a very expertise individual on this as well. Sashi, Chief Product Officer for WDS. Sashi has also had a contact center past, managing a team of a complex team of contact center professionals in the UK. Was this correct, Sashi?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. And Sashi is also bringing both from a WDS product perspective and also from his previous hat, managing these teams, kind of a view onto the problems that we faced then and that we are facing now. And I was the head of marketing for Collab for quite some time and recently moved up to the Chief Marketing Officer role at Lumin Group. And I'm happy to also drive this cooperation between companies. We are currently 22 companies in Lumin, just acquired announced the latest acquisition last week. And our goal for this year and the next ones is actually to promote cooperation between companies. And WDS is a special case because WDS is now part of Collab, but we'll be hosting a series of other webinars trying to promote also other opportunities. Next slide, please. Yep, and finalizing the introductions, just a quick overview of Collab and WDS. So I think most of you know Collab. We are a European-based contact center provider. We worked with over 700 customers nowadays, mostly through partners. So we have a live partner ecosystem around the world in roughly 40 countries. We have a ratio of maybe 1 or 2 partners per country, which lands us about 70 active partners nowadays. We are extending our partner ecosystem to the sister company WDS. And of course, as you know, we also work with certified consultants around the world, roughly over 300 people that are now trained and certified on the Collab technology. And with this, handing over to Sashi. Sashi, can you tell us a bit about WDS?
Sure. Oops, gone too far. Yeah, so WDS was founded back in '96, and our focus really has been around helping our clients achieve the best experience for their end customers. And over the past 25 years, we've operated, as Carlos has mentioned, and optimized those call centers through our managed services and combined ecosystem. We have operational teams based in South Africa, the UK, and the US, and we have customers across 6 different continents as well. So I think Carlos has already mentioned it, but if we skip forward to this year, WDS and Collab are now tightly integrated, and we can really deliver those advanced customer care solutions to our clients worldwide. Do you want to move to the next slide, Andy? So as mentioned, we're going to be running through some of the key challenges that we see our customers facing, and then later in the presentation and the webinar, we'll show how we think you can solve them. The first is really around the customer acquisition cost. Now, over the past 12 years in the US market, this has doubled to a quite staggering $315. So really, like the point of this being, once you acquire a customer, you really need to keep them. As an example, recently I've worked with clients that have gone through massive increases in the numbers of customers that they've acquired over the past 12 to 24 months. And really now they're battling, right, with customer churn and asking for our help. So differentiation through price and product alone isn't really a sustainable strategy for growth and retention. And it's really a race to the bottom, with brand loyalty really being reserved for those that care about the customer experience. And profits are now being eroded as greater investments are being made into the acquisition and support of customers. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at some real numbers on the next slide so that we can understand the scale of the problem. Next slide, please, Andy. So in this slide, you see two sets of data, and we've used the US telco market as an example, and you can see 2010 and 2021 respectively. As mentioned on our previous slide, you'll see that the cost that an operator needs to pay in order to acquire a customer in the first place is around about $315. This investment that's made by them is really subsidizing the cost of the device and making it more affordable and attractive to the customer. Now, the next line you see is the revenue line. So this is about $76. And so in the last few years, we've seen an increase in those all-you-can-eat plans that effectively place a ceiling on the revenue that operators can make. And now you're seeing operators looking to increase their profitability through the upsell of value-added services. Then we hit the cost line, which is about $40 per month. And this is where you have all the operational costs which are associated in maintaining me as a customer. So that leaves this much profit, which is $36. And therefore it takes 9 months before an operator even starts to break even, with many customers failing to deliver profit until they're halfway through the contractual term. So you can really see the importance of cementing that customer loyalty above and beyond that 12-month period. Next slide, please, Andy. So call center staff. So this has been one of the most challenging areas, I believe, for customer service operations over the past few years, especially due to COVID. There has been a dramatic shift towards work from home, and organizations of all sizes. I believe that in 2020, work from home accounted for just under 9% of seats that agents were using. And you compare this to 2021, this increased to just under 50%. So it's pretty dramatic changes. So that has caused things like staffing as being one of the main critical challenges that are affecting call centers. They're struggling with recruiting, hiring, and training agents, which is now having to take place in a completely virtual environment. And you can see the impact of some of this in the stats that you see on the screen. So in 2021, agent attrition went to 42%, and the cost of hiring a new agent, who takes up to 6 months to be productive. So you really need to engage your agents and retain them as much as possible. There's also some interesting stats here around, agents that have low engagement, right? So they have 43% higher attrition than those agents that are highly engaged. And those highly engaged agents are also 18% more productive. So, I think later in this webinar, we'll come on to how some of our solutions can help you improve your agent engagement. And I think that's it from me, Andy. So I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Sachi. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the problem of managing omnichannel, managing customer care in an omnichannel environment. Customers are expecting to be able to transact with organizations on an ever-increasing number of channels, and those channels have varying capabilities. Some are kind of rich, some are just text only. Also, maintaining content across channels as well. So if you imagine, especially in like a siloed environment that many kind of larger organizations are, it's possible that you could have content that's effectively duplicated and varies slightly across each channel, and that really dilutes the consistency of your messaging. You no longer have a single source of truth for in terms of like how you want to communicate with your customers, but B, ensuring that you have the right content in the right places to enable customers to self-serve, solve their own problems before they even get to the contact center. And also, with that kind of siloed, like broken up approach to managing content and managing ways in which customers can transact, that kind of has an implication with respect to what we're able to provide agents in the contact center. So, if the agents in the contact center, well, if they can't discover content that helps solve problems readily and easily, then it takes longer for them to get up to speed, and their engagement is low because it's always a struggle, and then you encounter that sort of higher churn rate. You've also got quality assurance issues. So with a siloed approach, how do you make sure that we're not only is the content consistent and the communication sort of style, language style consistent across all these channels, but how do you make sure that all of this content is authored to a sufficient level of quality? And then of course tracking the journey across channels, managing channel handoff. So what happens if a customer is forced to sort of change channel, and just making sure that everything that you're surfacing in a channel, like automation or content, is easily discoverable and usable, and being able to keep an eye on that to understand like what the impact of this is across your customer care landscape. So moving on, we're talking today about so we've talked about the customer lifetime value challenge, customer acquisition cost, managing omnichannel, a little bit about call center staff engagement, and we want to talk about our solution and how we're taking the expertise from WDS and combining it with the technology from Collab. And with that, I'd like to, I think I'm handing over to Sashi to take us through that.
Great stuff. Thank you, Andy. So now I'd like to talk about the value of managed customer experience, which is something that we have been providing for over 25 years now. So we have domain knowledge and expertise to keep the customer experience fresh, consistent and relevant. Then all of this is backed by SLAs, which ensure that the content is discoverable and available at the right time when customers need it most. Now, there are three areas where we manage the experience, which are technology, services and consulting. In technology, we automate or assist customer service interactions across self-care, device, contact center and service channels. In services, we provide managed and outsourced services which span customer care, testing, training and knowledge management. And then lastly, in consulting, we develop programs of activity designed to address specific client challenges and bespoke consulting to help identify value. Just some of the key benefits that you can see down below, which are reduced no fault found. So this is really reducing the number of product returns by agents, having the ability to diagnose and troubleshoot customer devices. We have improved time to competence. So this is again reducing those training times for agents by equipping them with the knowledge and tools to hit the ground running and start taking calls from day one. Improved average handling times. So this is providing agents with the knowledge that they need to troubleshoot and resolve customer issues quickly. Improved first call resolution. So this is helping to ensure agents resolve customers the first time and every time, reducing the need for them to phone back and call back. And then lastly, reduced propensity to contact. This is basically making channels accessible and convenient by deploying automation and self-serve content, really reducing the likelihood or number of times that customers need to contact you. So all of this results in helping reduce your costs, increase your profitability and the customer experience by improving the customer effort score, by reducing the amount of effort that customers have to expend to find the information they need, helping them to use a product or service and getting them, getting their issue resolved quickly. And because all of this, all of these solutions and all of these services we provide are tightly integrated, they learn from each other and generate actionable business intelligence to highlight and address further areas of investigation and improvement. Over to you, Andy.
Thanks, Sashi. So I'm going to talk about our ROI-driven approach, and we're using a telco example, but this is applicable to a great many vertical markets where there's a need for a kind of a care function in the business. So what we're looking at here is a graph that shows the overall volume of transactions handled in a care environment. So, number of calls or contacts, and how that call volume is spread across each reason the customer has for reaching out. So, in our telco example, potential high volume issues could be billing inquiries, number transfers or port-ins, or data roaming issues. And as we move to like the right side of this graph, there's more and more reasons for people to contact the organization, but they become less and less. They account for less and less of the overall call volume individually, and we kind of take a look at both ends of this graph. So we look at the top call drivers, and these are they're typically high volume, and they're usually a good candidate for automation. So we're able to build out automation, deploy it into the right channels, and enable customers to solve problems without the need to speak to someone, and without inflicting a poor experience on them. And of course we monitor that as an ongoing activity, and that monitoring forms part of our customer success program. But we can't forget about the long tail. So we might be tempted to say let's just focus on the low-hanging fruit. But when you start looking at the long tail, that's where customers can fall between the cracks, because agents and the care environment are all equipped to handle the big hitting call volume chunks, but it's in the long tail where you're starting to get into things that are a bit more ambiguous, need a bit of like troubleshooting. There's lots of Q&A, and that's where our knowledge management capability is extremely useful, because we're able to implement or introduce knowledge that is used to check various things, about the status of the account or the status of the product or whatever it is, and follow that through to a conclusion. And of course, we're able to then on a regular basis through our customer success program, talk with our customers and understand what are the new pressing issues that we need to address. So I'm going to hand back over to Sashi to talk about the process there.
Great stuff. Thank you, Andy. So next, I'm going to talk through the experience management process. So this is really a continuous improvement loop, which starts with the discovery phase. Now, during this phase, we perform audits of the contact center to really identify shortfalls in the skills, processes, content, or technology. Then in the onboarding phase one, in partnership with our client, we build an ROI roadmap, which includes like the customer journey mapping and knowledge generation, which really provides a solid foundation to begin with. At onboarding phase two, this is our pre-launch readiness phase, where we ensure that content and automation will be effective at launch and have a positive impact. Then you have launch, so this is where we deploy that content and automation to the channels, and we have an agreed anticipated problem coverage, which is typically around 60%. Now, when we move on to the in-life processes, this is where we perform analysis of the actual problems. And to do this, we use a number of inputs such as web analytics, call driver analysis, chat log analysis, sentiment analysis, and customer journey analysis, to create additional content and intents to support any gaps which have been identified. We also look at what's happening in the contact center. So in live phase two, we have a bi-directional interaction with agents, so they can tell us what's happening. Maybe there are some new use cases that we need to cater for. We then deploy content or automation to increase the efficiency in the contact center, and also to self-serve touch points for customers to solve problems before they get there. So this generally increases the problem coverage from 60 to over 80% at that point. And again, I will say that the experience management process is a continuous loop, and it ensures that the content and automation stays fresh and relevant throughout the life cycle, and that it addresses the key issues that customers are experiencing. Thanks, Andy. Over to you.
Yeah, I think just want to stick on this slide just for a moment. I think it's just worth mentioning that this is expensive for organisations to do properly. Which is why we successfully operate a managed service around this. We're 100% dedicated to this problem, and it enables our customers to focus on what's important to them, which is new products, services, growth, that sort of thing. So that's a key part of the value that we bring here. Moving on. So I'm going to take you through a view of the overall ecosystem, but in the context of a telco customer's journey. But there's a great deal of this that would apply to any vertical. So we have our customer on the left, and they interact with a variety of mediums that are enabled for self-care. So they could be a website or an app, or could be even like an in-person store environment, that sort of thing. Through those we make available a variety of channels which are supported by AI, which we'll get into in a minute, and that is backed by humans in the contact center. Now, we enrich all of these layers with an orchestration layer, which is where we are interacting with back office systems to enable customers to transact in a meaningful way with the organization. So check billing, change something on their account, that sort of thing. And we also integrate this with the one contact, single pane of glass for the agent. So our view is that agents get overloaded with tools, and that's a key problem that we've seen in contact centers. So really what we want to do is bring that all into one focused kind of cockpit for the agent to be able to work efficiently. And finally, with each transaction, we're gathering information about what's happening at each stage of this journey. We use that to not only empower our customers to make decisions about their products and services, but also to work with them on the customer success piece and recommend what we do next to further enhance the customer experience. Okay, so let's say that our customer has a billing inquiry. There's a charge appearing that they're not used to seeing. Perhaps the telco has changed the layout of the bill. So they have the telco's app installed on their phone, and they go to check their bill, where they identify the issue enabled through an integration with the back office billing platform. Now, because we've worked with the telco in advance, we've been able to produce customer and agent-facing content related to this inquiry and deploy it into every channel for each required language and geography. Ideally, the customer would discover this and the problem is solved here, but we're going to keep going all the way to the agent just to illustrate the journey. So let's say that the customer wants to speak to someone and uses the chat channel that's integrated into the app and the website. And here we're able to use AI to determine the reason for the contact, and our managed services team will have trained the AI to handle this intent, which was discovered during one of our regular customer success workshops. Now, if the customer still wants to speak to an agent, they can through handover from the AI to human using Collab's contact center technology, who are also supported by the knowledge management capability from WDS. So the same content that we provide in the care channels, we provide to the agent as well and make it highly discoverable. And let's not forget that throughout this we're gathering the sentiment of the interaction through the chat channel, and throughout this journey we've been gathering useful insight to help us optimize this journey in the future. So we touched on a few parts of the ecosystem, but I wanted to present a very quick high-level view of a wider view of it. So for example, we've talked about WDS providing that customer experience auditing, consulting, the knowledge management capabilities that we can make available via turnkey solutions or through APIs or kiosk-like in-person experiences. We have product intelligence data that can capture specifications of consumer electronics, for example, which then can be used as a knowledge source for bots, recommendation engines, and expert systems at the agent side. We also have problem prevention technology specifically for telcos to ensure customers are always correctly configured to use their services, and plus customer interaction tracking where any of this is deployed. And of course, this is at the heart of this is Collab's omni-channel contact center, which is supported by AI capabilities, sentiment analysis, and our joint bot capability. And just one more slide. So I wanted to call out our extended ecosystem that we have through the wider Lumen Group and our technology partners. There's too many to list here, but we have a variety of billing solutions. We have mobile money solutions, and with this like ROI-driven roadmap at the heart of what we do, what I'm trying to convey is that we can deploy capabilities and experts at the right place at the right time to support the goals of our customers. Carlos, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you know how many Lumen companies there are now?
We are currently 22.
22, yeah. So with a wide focus on like billing, mobile money, and other capabilities. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Carlos.
Yeah, so let's just quickly wrap what has been discussed so far. Next slide, please. When preparing this conclusion, I remembered of a nice paradox presented by Geoffrey Moore. He's one of my preferred writers in what comes to business writing, or in this case, marketing and technology trends. He was the author of a very famous book called Crossing the Chasm, almost a Bible for us marketeers. And he recently, on his LinkedIn page, he stated this paradox, which basically involves two apparently contradicting statements. The first one is you cannot transform your enterprise without software from a digital transformation point of view. And the second is software alone cannot digitally transform your enterprise. So this looks like a deadlock. Yeah. What is missing here? Of course, all of us and the processes here. So if we move on to the next slide, I think in our experience so far is that managed services have been providing our customers with an increasing customer satisfaction. So we have seen situations in Collab where a variety of situations, some customers were not taking full advantage of the infrastructure they had, the software, and by deploying managed services, they unlocked, let's say, hidden potential. We also have customers struggling with the technology, either because of a variety of reasons, and managed services was in place and quickly solved part of those issues. We have also seen customers trying to expand into other scenarios. So we have cloud, hybrid, private cloud. We are using managed services even in survivability scenarios where we allow customers to grow in these hybrid cloud models. So I would say that managed services from the Collab point of view has really revolutionized the way we look at digital transformation. So it's like if you make a comparison with the sports car or the racing industry, it's like we prepare you the car, we do the mechanics, you just drive it. We go to every race with you, we know the track, we give you the best telemetry tools, you just need to sit and drive. Yeah, and this is what our managed services do. In this particular case, and just to close this webinar, I would like to say challenges. Okay, so the WDS team is very strong from what I've seen in the past in ROI-driven approaches, so in return on investment. So here's what we put on the table today. If you have a situation that you would like to maybe implement in your company, but you may be struggling with a use case, so how can I go to my board and illustrate this with a positive ROI curve? You bring this challenge to us, okay? We have a calculator that Andy and Sashi have developed. I have seen, and I'm hugely impressed with it, where you can basically upload a set of variables and rules, and it will draw basically an ROI curve based on a set of assumptions. So we have a couple of examples here. These are just illustrations that we thought. Example one, as you know, Collab is about to launch the One Contact Data Studio, which is basically an elastic search or an advanced analytics tool. You may be struggling, okay, I would like to have this. It generates some very interesting insights on my operation, but I'm not entirely sure I have an ROI for that. Okay, this is an example. Challenge us. And I'm sure that Andy and Sashi and their team can basically dive into some of your existing KPIs and explain, if you observe metrics A, B, and C, some of them were discussed earlier on, like the customer acquisition costs or the no fault found or first time resolution and many others. Some of these metrics, if approached correctly, they might just by themselves generate an interesting ROI. Another example, which we have here, is example 2. Andy briefly mentioned that knowledge is accessible to both our bots and our agents. So agents can go manually and also search the knowledge base for answers. This is especially useful if you are in a chat session. You want to just grab a piece of content and copy and paste into the chat with the customer. So what if we have a bot that is automatically suggesting this content to the agent? We call this tool the Live Agent Assist. It's an experimental project for Collab, but again, we can work with you and see if there's a positive ROI case study for that. In particular, these 2 examples that I brought, I previously discussed with Paulo Porto, the VP Global Sales, and these actually are live opportunities that Collab is working on, and hence why I brought them here. Just one more that is not here, which is the gamification project that Collab has. Gamification lives out of KPIs, and if you challenge the WDS team to look at your existing KPIs and maybe understand which could be gamified and which could generate a higher ROI curve, I'm pretty sure the model that Andy has could also accommodate that. So bottom line is, come to us with a problem and challenge us to create a business case for you. Okay, we might surprise you. Yep. And with this, I think we can open up for Q&A. Correct? Thank you, Andy and Sashi. I did see, before formally opening, I did see that a question already came up. I actually published this question. Let's start with this one. So this one goes back to the one that I published here. Yeah, it goes back to agent attrition. The question is, why do you think there's a reason for high agent attrition in a contact center? Part 1, what's the reason? And part 2, how can we overcome them? Maybe to Sashi.
Yeah, I think, you know, we've been through some extraordinary times, right? So the last couple of years with the pandemic, I think, you know, a lot of agents have been working from home. You know, they've been upskilling in other areas. So they probably are a lot more mobile, right? So there's a lot more mobility for those agents. Also, and I think agents generally have always had like an issue with high attrition. And especially maybe during this last few years, maybe a lack of engagement. They probably feel quite cut off and remote. So I think, you know, those are probably kind of the key areas where I think, you know, there's maybe like compounded the issue over the last kind of 12, 24 months.
Let me also jump in. We are still debating on the causes of attrition. So I think the contact center industry is a tricky one. You do highly repetitive work if you are an agent. So you're basically replying the same things to the customers, or you're doing the same outbound script. There's also the challenge of metrics. We are imposing more and more calls, and this is a high stress activity, no doubts about that. What we have seen, especially during the pandemic, is that some of our customers are actually hiring people either working from home or working from locations that are not so often, so no longer the main capital. So for instance, in Portugal, I've seen movements setting up teams in the interior, okay, outside of the urban cities. And these teams that surprisingly had high qualification also turned up with low attrition rates or lower than we are used to in more urban areas. I don't know if you can comment on that as well, Sashi.
No, I mean, I think, but from what I can see, people are looking to, outsource their agents into different geographical areas, and it's really about, when you go and do that, how do you make sure that all of your agents are connected, they're all engaged, right? Because you're no longer just focused on, walking out the door and seeing your agents there. These are agents all over the world. So, you really need to put some of these things in place to make sure that they have consistent messaging, that they are skilled and engaged, really. Otherwise, they will just churn. I think.
Yeah. It is so worth saying that, agents sometimes, not only have the stress of like meeting their metric targets and such, but also have to deal with upset people quite often. And that can be a stress all on its own, especially if it's kind of exacerbated by not having the tools to do the job.
I think actually it's a good point, Andy. So I was reading an article around the fact that the general public is a lot less patient over the last couple of years, right? Because people are probably on hold and waiting to speak to an agent, and eventually when they do, they're not very happy. So they're probably having to deal with a lot more unhappy customers that are a lot less patient. So I think, maybe part of this is around, I don't want to jump to the next point really, which is the how, Carlos, but I guess
go ahead and take a stab at it. Yeah, please do.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so agents, as you say, perform a lot of monotonous tasks on a daily basis. So again, I think you do need to look at some of those tasks to understand, could those potentially be automated, so you can really free up your agents to answer those high value calls, which are hopefully not as monotonous, and the agents feel a lot more engaged. That's just one of my views.
Yeah, I totally agree. So one of the low attrition scenarios we have seen is put the bot up front. The bot takes care of repetitive tasks, and it will leave the agent to the more brain-like activities. Totally agree with that.
And that kind of mirrors our high volume call driver versus low volume call driver graph, where we're deploying automation to solve like the stuff, the problems that have solutions that are easily repeatable. But then towards the long tail, it requires a thinking cap to really get to grips with it.
One very interesting case study in our market was, I think, was a shoe company that basically released a policy for the support agents, where they could basically spend as much time as they wanted on a call, on a technical support or shoe resolution inquiry. So they released the metric. No longer they were evaluated on average handling time. And also they empower the agent. So basically, if you want to replace the shoes, you go ahead and do it. It's your call. Okay. And I know this is not applicable to any industry. You cannot replace a vehicle. But if you empower your agents, and if you release them of some of the more hardcore metrics, especially in technical support, you might see an uptick in both customer satisfaction and in reducing agent attrition. Yeah, so it might be a win-win scenario. Also, just a final note on the first question, gamification also we have seen playing a big role, especially on the agent motivation. Of course, you are doing the grinding and the repetitive tasks, but now you see your name on a leaderboard and you are winning points as a team or as an individual, and you can go to a store, online store, and buy, a small vacation, a getaway, or an iPad, and these, or maybe a supermarket voucher. And we have seen a huge boost in motivation, especially in some of our larger customers with gamification. Also a note. I'm going to publish another question as well. Question number 2 is, how effective is AI in terms of knowing customer intent? How detailed is it, and how can we measure if it's meeting the target?
Okay, so we've said during this presentation that really we're talking about a combination of the managed services, our expertise plus the plus the technology. So we would work with the client or the partner to understand what are the reasons for the calls coming in, and then make a decision, in partnership as to like, which intents do we need to model in on the AI side, and what's the best way of handling those, in each channel. So yeah, there's no magic wand. We do. I think the key is that, A, is that initial discovery, but also, and this is really at the heart of what we do, is that continuous laser focus on how successful the deployment of that automation or content is. And that's why we have a team dedicated to just this problem. And as we ascertain where we're getting that leak through from the automated care layer through to the agent, or maybe a low level of sentiment, then we refine it and continuously optimize, as is our continuous improvement process that we discussed.
Yeah, just me also like to comment on that. So how effective is AI? Customer intents can vary a lot. So I've seen in telcos, for instance, over 100 possible intents on a call. But if you follow the money, meaning if you sort out those intents, maybe where are your top 10 volume in terms of consumption of your agent's time, which top 10 intents are indeed troubling your operation. And if you sort them, maybe just take a look at the top 3 and try to automate them, okay?
Yeah.
We have seen, and we have worked with some companies before doing this, automating not 100 intents, but top 3, top 5. And this is where the money is at, okay? And I believe you will get some surprising results by doing this. We did model an ROI case study for this, Andy, remember, for a customer in Mozambique. Yeah. Okay, just the final part of this is how can we measure if it's meeting the target? You can ask the customer, okay, just thumbs up or thumbs down. Did we solve your problem? Yes or no, where a no answer could mean maybe half a no. Okay, if he just signs off without answering, half a no. Yeah, so we can track that. Okay, let me publish another question. This is a tricky one. I believe intuitive search or the live agent assist is highly beneficial and considerable. When do you plan to roll out this feature? So we are accepting experimental projects, meaning POCs, proof of concepts. We are taking in the first couple of customers that want to go and try this technology with us. It will not be a straightforward, simple project that we have done hundreds of times. It will be exploration based. We have the team in place and even more now with the WDS team. So we now have the AI capabilities and the knowledge management capabilities. We have, I would say, a beginning of a product, which also gives you the possibility of being an early adopter and helping us shape the product. And there is no date, okay? The date will depend on basically the number of customers we can bring on board. But the answer is, if you want to take a first leap of faith with us, reach out. We can provide you with the conditions to start this project with us. It's going to be a very beneficial set of conditions, and we are happy to work it on with you guys, okay? The first early adopters. And one more question, one last from Zoltan. What are the capabilities of your sentiment analysis function, and how does it relate to the changing regulatory environment? So let me briefly mention on the capabilities. So sentiment analysis is an interesting world by itself. Currently, we are only doing it for offline interactions. So we can do it for a chat or a voice call that happened a couple of minutes earlier on. We are not doing it in real time just yet. So once we have a call recording, we will take a look at the full audio stream, and we will try to extract some audio parameters out of it. Did the customer and the agent overlap each other? Did they speak over each other? Did the agent or the customer started to raise his volume? Was there any abnormal silence, like hesitation? So all of this we do on the audio stream, and it's independent of the language being spoken. Okay, it works in English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, whatever. Once we do this conversion into text and we extract these audio parameters, now we are leveled up with a chat session. So it's like having a chat transcript where we are now going to look into what was said and the way it was said. Now, every sentence, we have a sentiment score for every sentence being written or spoken by the agent or by the customer. So as you can imagine, we now have a set of sentences with a set of scores. We can draw a curve. This is the sentiment score or the sentiment curve for each conversation. Now, if you look at just one interaction, you can learn a lot. So what did this agent do that either worked so well or worked so wrong? But if you zoom out and if you look at tens or hundreds or thousands of calls, you can see those mass movements. So what is team A doing that is working better or worse than team B? So A/B testing, and you can sentiment score and compare two different teams working maybe, for instance, in two different BPOs that are taking different approaches. And why is one more successful in retaining customers or in solving other issues? Yeah. So this is sentiment analysis in a nutshell. About the changing regulatory environment, I don't know exactly if you are asking about GDPR, but the question is, customers know their call is being recorded. If they don't accept, they will basically disconnect. So once the call was recorded, we can basically extract any parameters we want as long as we keep the call confidential. So what I said, when you zoom out, I don't think GDPR applies anymore because you are no longer looking at an individual caller. But our sentiment analysis tool can make very interesting recommendations even in a cloud environment. So for instance, we can say, hey, customer A, your competitors or similar companies like you are having these average scores and you have this one. So you are, for instance, below average in your agent retention curve, or your, in this particular set of campaigns, which are, I don't know, outbound selling, your conversion is lower than average. And you can maybe try and dig deeper. What is your call duration? What is the average skill level of your agents? And so on. So I don't think yet, so far as we know, that we have a regulatory problem as long as customers know their call is being recorded. Yep. No worries, we are on time. I know people are leaving. I don't know if we have any other questions being published. I don't think so. I would like to thank you all for attending this session. Challenge us. We will create an ROI model. It might be positive or not. We will not charge for this ROI model. So if you have a problem, you are struggling with presenting it to your board, you would like to see that project going forward, you need some more background, reach out to us. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much for your time today. We kind of exceeded the 30 minutes, but I think it was good. Yeah. Thank you very much to all the attendees as well.